A long time ago, the end of the world arrived, and the magic tower emerged. Humans awakened their powers and fought against the monsters that came out of the tower. Generations of ancestors died, and new generations were born. Humans firmly believed that one day, justice would defeat evil. Finally, a hero emerged from nowhere. With his extremely powerful talent, near-perfect wisdom, and incredible luck, he reached the highest level of the tower. Currently, he is the most promising person to end the darkness. He is called the Light of Humanity, Lin Xiao. Lin believes this is his third regression, and this time, whether it be attributes or abilities, he would have to practice to the extreme. As he looks at the system, he sees that he has also obtained all the most powerful and well-known weapons and accessories in the world. According to the system's instructions, everything would end once he cleared the last floor of the magic tower. He feels grateful for all the help he received from the system over the years, but unfortunately, he hasn't seen the high-level monsters of the tower, and the system can't find any information about them. The guy with glasses behind him comments that Lin is in a trance staring into nothing, and the other guy laughs, saying he must be thinking about some girl. Lin turns around and says he was thinking about what will happen after they defeat the Demon King, and comments that he is always misunderstood when looking at the system. After all, he is the only one in this world who can see the system interface. A girl approaches, enchanted by the beauty of this level of the magic tower. The group starts walking, and they ask Lin what the boss of this level would look like and why it is so empty. The girl comments that it is completely different from what she expected, very bright and luxurious. The protagonist explains that angels have a frightening appearance because they want to scare demons, and demons are beautiful because they want to seduce humans and make them lower their guard. Lin turns to the group and says that the more secure and beautiful a place seems, the more relaxed everyone becomes, so they must be cautious there. He also thinks that after returning 3 times, this is the first time he has reached the top of the tower, and information about this place is still unknown. The group feels proud to be led by the veteran Lin, and comments that the dawn of victory is near. The redhead calls the protagonist, smiling, saying that with him there, they would definitely win. The blonde guy starts to say they would win, until suddenly, blood is splattered everywhere, and everyone there is decapitated. Lin turns around, not understanding, and sees his entire group decimated. Stealthily, someone approaches from behind the protagonist, smiling, and suddenly appears behind the protagonist, leaving him in shock. He turns quickly, asking who it is, and realizes it is a monster, and he hadn't even noticed its approach. Lin tries to attack it, but with just one finger the monster defends. It calmly says to the protagonist that it was a beautiful sword but a bit fragile. The protagonist can't believe that this monster broke his sword, the most powerful weapon known in the world, with just one finger. The monster appears behind him again, smiling and asking where Lin was looking. Lin turns, and suddenly he is attacked, the blow brutally throwing him against the wall. The protagonist, all battered, starts coughing. He looks at the monster standing in front of him and asks if it is the Demon King, thinking it is impossible for a monster to have a human form. The monster says it is the personification of human fear and explains that it was born from the dark side of humans, so naturally, it has a human form. Lin opens the system and sees that the monster's health bar hasn't decreased at all. He is outraged because he hit with all his strength and caused no damage. The system indicates a passive ability of the demon, Permanent Lifelock, and that its magical power is infinite, leaving Lin incredulous. Suddenly, the demon takes on a shadowy form, and system notifications appear, saying, "Warning, extremely dangerous. The enemy's strength is very high. The chance of victory is 0.00000017, calculating the best escape plan." Lying there, unresponsive, Lin thinks he has no chance of winning, but he needs to calm down and figure out what to do. The monster stretches out its arm and grabs the system interface, breaking it, leaving Lin bewildered. The monster says it discovered something incredible. It seems that only Lin could see the system and asks if that was what was guiding him, and if that's why he was able to find those unique weapons and accessories. He smiles and says he doesn't know what that garbage is, but now it's gone. Lin, shocked, asks what the monster did to his system. The demon points his finger and says that he cannot see it, but that doesn't stop him from destroying it. After all, he is invincible. His hand starts to approach the protagonist, who thinks he is going to die. And even though it's not the first time, this time he is truly scared and cannot think of how to defeat this demon. Lin concentrates and thinks he cannot give up. Even if he dies and regresses, he has to work hard. There will always be a way to turn the situation around, and there is still hope for humanity. Suddenly, Lin opens his eyes and is surprised to notice that he is being healed. He thinks this is probably the best healing technique, the energy flowing through his body as if it has no end. He is astonished to realize that it was actually the demon healing him. He asks the demon why he is doing this, and the demon asks if he is a returnee. The demon says that based on Lin's familiarity with lower-level monsters in the tower, he knows all their abilities and weaknesses. It's as if Lin had a prediction ability. But if that were true, he wouldn't be surprised to see the demon. He asks how many times Lin has returned. The demon says that if he killed him now, he would return and do everything again until sooner or later he manages to kill him. The demon looks at Lin and says that from his expression, it seems he is right, but Lin is still not calm enough. The demon snaps his fingers, saying he will allow his death. A wave of power begins to engulf the protagonist, and the demon says that, as expected from someone who has died and returned 3 times, he indeed has a fine armor. Lin starts to be consumed by the demon's power, who says that his healing technique will heal him infinitely, so Lin will never die, thus being buried forever, an immortal undead. The demon's power takes him over completely, brutally tearing the protagonist apart. The demon turns around and starts walking, calmly sitting on his throne. Everyone has thought of being the protagonist at least once, so how can one know who the true protagonist is? This is a question that cannot be answered by prophets, but by historians. In the end, the winner will always be the protagonist. In this case, it is the Demon King, the strongest boss. In a building, the television news announces that according to reports, the hero Lin Xiao and his team have died. The location of their death was the top of the Magic Tower, just 1 step away from victory. The Human Awakeners Association expressed condolences and calls upon all human elites to continue challenging the tower to prevent monsters from reaching the human world. Walking down the street, a woman named Tiantian asks her partner Qing Feng if just ahead is not the hidden S-rank dungeon. Speaking about the Magic Towers, the Magic Tower connects its entrance to the city, appearing randomly in every corner of the city and expelling an endless stream of monsters from the dungeon, which attack the city. As a result, only a few elite members of the Human Awakeners Association decide to attack the Magic Tower outside the city, while most members are committed to finding and perfecting the dungeons within the city to keep it safe. The 2 partners start entering the S-rank dungeon. They finally enter the dungeon, and Tiantian asks if the monsters in this dungeon will really leave a blood cone, and if regular items can really deal with the Demon King. The blood cone is a simple item. Its rule is, each attack must cause a drop of damage. Qing Feng, irritated, says that good will defeat evil and that her awareness is far from sufficient. She apologizes and says that Qing Feng has always been the pride of the heavens, and he is still very young. When he evolves, he will become better than Lin Xiao. She looks at him with admiration and says she will always support him. Ahead, they encounter a defeated monster with someone sitting on top of it. They wonder if it is a teenager. It is the Demon King, who says he imagined that some smarter humans would think of using strong items against the Demon King. So he took a step forward and asked the monster to hand him the blood cone. Qing Feng extends his hand and asks the Demon King to give him the item. The Demon King remarks that this young man doesn't even know who he is, and still wants to steal his things. Qing Feng introduces himself and asks if the Demon King has heard of him, saying the item would be worth much more in his hands to fight for the world's justice. The Demon King throws the item towards Qing Feng, who is surprised but defends using the crystal cube. The rule for this item, regardless of level, is absolute defense, limited to one person within a 2 cubic meter radius. Qing Feng thinks this magic is very powerful for a human and realizes this might be the Demon King. Quickly, the Demon King grabs Tiantian by the neck and says he knows who Qing Feng is, the mysterious genius who promises to be the next Lin Xiao. He proposes that Qing Feng destroy his crystal cube, and he will let the two of them leave. Qing Feng clenches his fist and tells Tiantian that she is sacrificing herself for the good of the world, and that he will build a memorial for her. He charges at the Demon King, who easily dodges. The Demon King says he finds it interesting that Qing Feng didn't hesitate to attack him, not caring about his admirer's life, and still has a long way to understand human nature. Qing Feng replies that a hero is always alone, and that sometimes sacrifices are necessary. The Demon King, releasing Tiantian, mocks that not everyone thinks that way. Tiantian, with tears in her eyes, says she can't believe her hero could be so cold-blooded since she is the only one who has followed him for many years. Crying, she shouts for Qing Feng to use his crystal cube to escape and leave her there. Qing Feng draws his sword, exclaiming that a hero like him will not flee. He strikes a pose and declares that good will defeat evil for the world's future. Suddenly, Tiantian is confused to see the Demon King laughing so hard at the speech that he wets himself. He regains his seriousness and says that since the young man will not flee, he will not be polite. He begins using his powers, cornering Qing Feng. Suddenly, the ground opens and Qing Feng starts to fall. Desperate, he wonders if he has been defeated and if he will die. From above, the Demon King waves his hand and says the young man will take a sip of lava since he is so thirsty. A righteous hero like him will have his heroic death. Qing Feng, still falling, thinks he cannot die yet. He finally reaches the bottom and begs the Demon King to let him out. The Demon King starts to move away from the abyss, leaving Tiantian there alone. She realizes that Qing Feng is dead and she will be next. Suddenly, she notices the Demon King walking away. Ignoring her, she asks if he will not kill her. The Demon King continues leaving and says he had already said that once the crystal cube was destroyed, he would let them both go. He turns, smiling, and emphasizes that unfortunately, her friend will not be able to leave and says that next time they meet, he will kill her. Tiantian is left speechless. The Demon King continues to walk away and finally exits the portal. He walks down the street among other ordinary people. Sometime later, at the headquarters of the Human Awakeners Association, a girl asks if the young man intends to join the association. Another girl steps in front of her, enchanted, and explains that the monsters are becoming more developed and there are rumors that they are heading to the city. So, all powerful awakeners are welcome to join the association, especially one as handsome as him. The wolf in sheep's clothing smiles and introduces himself as Qing Feng, and that they have probably heard his name before. He emphasizes that it is a pleasure to join the Human Awakeners Association. In the Hall of the Seven Elders, within the association's headquarters, one of the elders says that now only 6 of the 7 elders remain. He continues, saying that unexpectedly, the oldest elder, Lin Xiao, as a returnee, has the ability to turn back time and still failed in challenging the magic tower. The man in the center of the hall explains that as long as the Demon King is in the tower, he will enjoy the blessings of unconditional health lock and the tower's infinite magical power rules. He states that strong humans cannot continue dying, and it is time to choose another plan. He roars that he warned all of humanity that it is forbidden to challenge the magic tower, and that everyone is searching for items to seal the tower. He claims that if the monsters no longer reach human cities from the underground cities, then human cities can remain safe forever. Suddenly, someone says they summoned a chosen one from another dimension, called the Traveler, and he is from a place called Earth. The woman continues, saying this is a secret from the outside world, and even he doesn't know he was summoned to save the world. The girl says that his soul now resides in Lin Xiao's younger brother, Lin Feng, and that he has now led a super team into the dungeon in search of items that can seal the tower. One of the elders takes a sip and says that last month he made a divination for Lin Feng, showing that soon he would find the items he seeks. The old man smiles, asserting that the magic tower will be sealed soon. As they leave the hall, a girl is excited by the news that the tower will be sealed, thinking it's wonderful. The old man turns to her and asks if she has thought that the Demon King might be in the human city when the tower is sealed, making it useless. Sweating, the girl asks what they can do about it. Out of nowhere, the old man slaps the girl's butt, startling her. The old man walks away laughing, saying it was a joke because it would be impossible for the Demon King to leave the tower. He emphasizes that besides, even if he leaves, without the tower's blessings, the Demon King would have the strength of a strong human and once discovered, would be killed by a legion of humans. The old man starts shouting, saying that the Demon King is trapped in the magic tower until the end of time, and if he leaves, he would be easily killed. When Lin Feng finds the items to seal the tower, humanity will prevail. The old man keeps talking to himself in the corridor, while the girl quietly starts to leave. The old man decides to return to his room, and upon opening the door, he is surprised to see the protagonist sitting there. He asks who he is and what he is doing there. The protagonist looks at him and introduces himself, saying he is the new awakener who joined the association. The old man closes the door and says he didn't expect him, and that he has heard his name, Qing Feng, the hidden genius. The protagonist stands up and says it would be an honor to help eradicate the Demon King. The elder asks him to sit down, saying there is no need for formalities. The wolf in sheep's clothing says he heard rumors that the elder is the only one who can predict the future and asks the old man to make a prediction for him, the future of the Demon King. The old man closes his eyes and says that young people think it's easy to destroy the Demon King. If he could predict his future, then the light of humanity would not be Lin Xiao, but himself, because to make the prophecy, he must touch the person in question on a full moon night. The protagonist says that tonight there is a full moon in the sky. The old man grumbles, calling him stupid, because even with the full moon, he must touch the involved person, asking irritably where he can find a Demon King to make the prediction. A gloomy atmosphere envelops the place, and the protagonist approaches his hand to the elder, who asks fearfully, realizing that this young man is actually the Demon King. The protagonist, touching the elder, says, "Great prophecy, activate." He sees that in the future, the Demon King will be killed by a human in the next season, when the snowflakes begin to fall. The Demon King exclaims, "Mind-reading art, activate." Suddenly, he begins lifting the elder by the neck and asks if his predictions are accurate. The terrified old man says no and that he can still be useful. The Demon King then says, "Predict if you will be killed by me tonight," leaving the old man in shock upon hearing this. This is your cliché transmigration story, a tale about a guy from the modern world transmigrating to a parallel world, fighting and leveling up until he kills the Demon King. I'm just an ordinary guy, living in the poorest social layer of the planet, until one day, while reading my novel on my way to work, I had an accident and died. Just like the prologue of any reincarnation story, I reincarnated inside that book and became one of the characters, the second son of the Lin family, not the all-powerful Lin Xiao, but the useless younger brother, Lin Feng, always living in the shadow of his older brother. However, all that is about to change. Lin Feng appears, telling his father that he knows the location of the sealing record item and asks for a powerful troop to recover it. He thinks that since he was already familiar with the novel's plot and had an omniscient point of view, he already knew the items needed to seal the magic tower and thus quickly obtained the map to the item. At the headquarters of the Awakeners Association, Feng's team was assembled. He thinks that now that Lin Xiao is dead, the true protagonist of this story will appear. It's time to save this world and become the hero. Feng tells Leah that with him there, they will easily obtain the sealing item, but she doesn't pay attention. He looks at her, thinking that in his past life, he wouldn't have dared to dream of someone as beautiful as her. But in this life, she is his fiancée. He looks to the side and thinks that this other young lady, Tiantian, is as frightened as a rabbit. He pats her head and says, everything is fine. She is safe at the headquarters. She thanks him, and he steps away, thinking it's comfortable to be so handsome, concluding that reincarnated people really have a very good life. He begins to walk and tells the team he has things to do, so he's going ahead. Tiantian asks where he is going. He says he is going to meet the great prophet, and they bid farewell. He thinks that once he becomes the hero who sealed the tower, he will be able to get whatever he wants. Laya goes to the receptionist and says she is there to conduct a transaction. The receptionist asks what type, and she responds that she wants to recommend someone to join the association. The receptionist asks who. Laya grabs Tiantian by the arm and says it's her, emphasizing that she is the only person who saw the Demon King and survived. The receptionist is startled to hear this. Tiantian asks if the receptionist knows Qingfeng, saying that she is his only follower, and explains that they encountered the Demon King in the dungeon and that he killed the veteran Qingfeng, but she managed to escape. The receptionist finds this strange because Qingfeng just joined the association and is very much alive. Tiantian is confused, and the receptionist explains that he was there a while ago when he came to visit the great prophet. The two, in disbelief, ask if Qingfeng is really alive. Meanwhile, the Demon King was strangling the elder and asks if he guessed that his end would be tonight. The elder begs for his life, saying he can still be useful and that the Demon King could ask him anything. The Demon King, killing the old man, says that this talk is boring. He thought all humans were like Lin Xiao, full of courage and thirst for justice, but he was wrong. He thinks he should improve his knowledge of humans and concludes that he has nothing to worry about regarding humans, so he will let the elder rest in peace. Without hesitation, he ends the old man's life, leaving him lying there. The Demon King thinks that if he returns to the magic tower and Lin Feng gets the sealing item as the prophecy says, he will be imprisoned forever. But if he stops Feng, he might die by a hero's hand, as the prophecy says. He wonders what he should do. As he was leaving, he concluded that it was still too early to leave the magic tower, and now that he had obtained the content of the prophecy, he should return. He looked ahead and remembered seeing a back door. Suddenly, someone touched his shoulder. It was Lin Feng, asking who he was since he had never seen him there before. The Demon King thought he had been discovered. Calmly, he turned around and said he was an awakener who had just joined the association, leaving Feng surprised. Feng looked at the emblem on his jacket and said that this emblem was for S-Class Awakeners. He asked the Demon King if he wanted to join his team and said they were close to recovering an item capable of sealing the magic tower. The Demon King asked about the item. The semi-protagonist introduced himself as Lin Feng, saying that although he was unknown, he was about to become a hero to the whole world, and proposed once again that he join his team. The Demon King, excited upon realizing that this was the Lin Feng from the prophecy, smiled and accepted the invitation, saying to himself, "Great prophet, let's see if your prophecy will come true." With that, they start walking, and Feng remarks that the young man is very fortunate to have a leader like him, urging him to be obedient and promising not to treat him badly in the future. He mentions that he even saved a beautiful girl on his last mission, the only one who survived an encounter with the Demon King. The Demon King, disguised as Qingfeng, watches silently from the background. Suddenly, he turns and asks cynically how anyone who has seen the Demon King could still be alive. Lin Feng, laughing, responds that his name is Tian and she's a member of the team, and soon he will meet her. Hearing this, the Demon King starts to walk away. Feng turns and asks where he is going. The Demon King looks at him, smiles, and says he just remembered that a sow from his hometown is about to give birth and he needs to return to take care of the delivery. Confused, Feng wonders what the hell this newcomer is talking about. Unexpectedly, Tiantian spots the two walking and calls out to her captain, happily waving. He joyfully waves back, approaches the Demon King, and whispers to him that he might not know, but being surrounded by beautiful girls can be tiring. Tiantian can't believe it when she sees Qing Feng. She approaches and asks if it's really him. The Demon King, in trouble, thinks this is the worst possible scenario. He calmly turns and greets Tiantian. Suddenly, she runs up to him and hugs him, saying it's incredible that he managed to escape from the Demon King. Lin Feng starts to sweat and wonders if this is really Qing Feng, since in the original novel, he was dead. Tiantian, with shining eyes, says she was worried about him and thought she wouldn't see him again. The Demon King remains silent, thinking this girl must know he is the Demon King disguised as Qing Feng. However, she, completely deluded, says she's very grateful he saved her from the demons last time and that she will repay him for it. She emphasizes that from today, she will continue to be his admirer, as she admires him and always pays her debts. The Demon King, smiling, thinks she admires the Demon King and wants to repay the kindness, and finds it interesting. He says he understands and will treat her well. Feng, annoyed, asks what this follower talk is about, since she is part of his team. Leah, in the background, says she heard a lot about Qing Feng and is delighted to meet him. Feng, even more annoyed, says she belongs to him. Leah ignores him and asks the wolf in sheep's clothing what the Demon King looks like, since he and Tiantian saw him in person. Tiantian responds emphatically that he is fierce and terrifying, while the protagonist points out that he just looks like a bad person. The three laugh together, while Lin Feng, furious, thinks this newcomer is becoming increasingly annoying. He remembers that in the original novel, Qing Feng was killed by the Demon King early on, and only Tiantian would have survived. He wonders if his actions are causing a butterfly effect, and concludes that he has to ask the Great Prophet about this guy. Suddenly, someone shouts that there's more news, putting Feng on alert. It was the receptionist running and shouting that it was about the Great Prophet. Feng asks what happened to him. The girl says he was killed, but an hour ago he was alive. She asked them to seal the association and investigate everyone who had been in contact with him. Everyone is shocked to hear, and Feng says the only people who saw him were the protagonist completes, saying it was just Captain Lin Feng and him. Feng, furious, shouts that he didn't even see him today, and as soon as he arrived there, he saw him in front of the door, acting suspiciously. Suddenly, he realizes and points his finger at the Demon King, screaming that he was the one who killed the Great Prophet and knew there was something wrong with him from the beginning. Leah holds his arm, asking him to calm down, and Feng slaps her, calling her an idiot. He says everyone there was fooled by him, and that is not Qing Feng. He lunges forward, saying that the newcomer might fool everyone else but not him. The Demon King smiles and dodges the punch. Lin Feng goes straight while the Demon King thinks that fool doesn't even compare to Lin Xiao. The Demon King attacks, and Feng falls to the ground, screaming in pain. The protagonist steps close to Feng's head and presses it against the ground. While watching the fight, Leah is frightened while Tiantian is thrilled by all the strength of her master. The protagonist, stepping on Lin Feng's head, says this should calm him down. With a confused look, he thinks it's strange this kid is confident that he really isn't Qing Feng. He says he's heard of Feng, a worthless and untalented trash, and comments that he liked his older brother, Lin Xiao, better. Lin Feng, being crushed, asks who the worm called trash. Leah approaches the fight and tries to calm the protagonist, saying that Feng didn't do it on purpose, that he used to be a good and honest person, but lately has become impulsive and asks not to hurt him. Meanwhile, Feng, on the ground, says he has a question. Suddenly, he gets up trying to hit the protagonist and asking who he called trash. The Demon King looks at his hand and, seeing his weapon, wonders how trash like Feng has an S-class weapon. He thinks that even a common S-class awakened isn't a match for him in a one-on-one fight, but he doesn't remember Lin Feng's name on the humanities geniuses list. Out of nowhere, a man arrives asking them to stop. He releases a power through his voice that spreads across the place. Feng realizes that his magic has disappeared, and the Demon King thinks that this is a power based on rules. This man is the president of the Awakened Association, and his power is to make all supernatural power disappear within his domain. Annoyed, he says that each member of the association is valuable in the fight against demons and asks how they dare to fight among themselves. The Demon King looks at him and thinks having the association president there is not good, as he is out of the magic tower and, therefore, has no abilities like infinite vitality, unlimited mana, and ignoring all rules. He concludes that this is dangerous and must be more cautious. He bows to the president and says he's sorry for causing trouble, that it's his fault, and promises it won't happen again. As he bows, Feng shouts for the elder. He approaches angrily, pointing at the Demon King, and says the president didn't stop the fight while he was getting beaten up and interfered when he was going to attack him. He asks if the president is on his side. The Demon King thinks, how is it possible this person is the genius who managed to obtain an S-class weapon and the map of a divine item, as he has neither brains nor character for that. The director asks Feng to stop talking nonsense and has never been on either side, and emphasizes that everything he does is for the future of humanity, while Feng points his finger at him, asking if the director really thinks he believes his nonsense. Feng starts to leave very annoyed, saying that everyone there is looking at him with disdain, and they have no idea of his worth, and he emphasizes that soon he will have the sealing item and will seal the tower, showing everyone who is the real chosen one who will save the world. The director sighs and touches the protagonist's shoulder. He says, smiling, that he admires him not just for his strength, but also for being calm and polite. The wolf in sheep's clothing, smiling, thanks the director and wonders why the hell all humans love him. The director warns that he has already investigated the death of the great prophet, and there are traces of demonic power at the crime scene. It could be a monster that escaped from the dungeon and killed the great prophet. However, for a final verdict, a deeper investigation is needed. The director, holding the Demon King's shoulder, alerts that the search for the divine item is imminent, and he must go with Lin Feng, as the two carry the future of humanity. The Demon King smiles and says he agrees, and thinks that ironically, he is leading the future of humanity in the exact opposite direction. The director starts to leave and asks them to keep working hard, as humanity will be in the hands of young people like them. Laya looks at the protagonist, worried, and says she will see Feng, as he has been very irritable lately. As she tries to walk away, the Demon King holds her arm and asks her to wait. He looks at Laya and cautiously asks her if the Lin Feng he just humiliated has changed his personality recently and is different, and also asks if she knows what happened. The Demon King wonders if Leah will become suspicious of him after his abrupt question. Leah is puzzled, and the protagonist, noticing, apologizes for the question and emphasizes his concern for Feng. He also apologizes again for being impulsive and humiliating the young man. Laya says it's okay if that's the case. She thinks this Qing Feng is a nice guy and genuinely concerned about Feng. She explains that Lin Feng used to be trash and a coward, but overnight, upon waking up, his personality changed. She mentions that he even talked about strange things like books, transmigration, cheat codes, and parallel worlds. She thought he was just sleepy, but it persisted, and he became a completely different person. Not only did he become extraordinary and bold, but he also obtained the location of top-tier items and weapons, even maps of divine items. It was as if he had the power to speak and make anything happen. So, even though his own strength was extremely lacking, by using powerful weapons, he managed to become an S-class hunter. Laya continues explaining that the elders of their families said that Feng received enlightenment. She questioned him about having awakened any abilities, but he refuses to give an answer. The Demon King is intrigued to hear all this. He concludes that it's not that simple, as Feng was very confident that he really wasn't Qing Feng, but didn't say why. Thinking about this, he wonders why Lin Feng refuses to say what needs to be said, even to his family and fiancé. The Demon King then concludes that this also was not the real Lin Feng, and that's why he can't tell anyone. Suddenly, a loud noise occurs, startling everyone. Laya asks what that noise is. One of the association members says that an A-class demon has escaped from the dungeon and entered the city. Another member asks if no one stopped it, and the first member explains that Mr. Lin Feng is defending. An A-class demon, called the Canine Corpse, furiously charges at Feng, who holds his S-class sword, called the Fiery Flames of the Freezing Flying Sword. He shouts how dare this monster, and attacks it with his sword, brutally wounding the devil's dog. Feng draws another S-class sword, called the Meteor Star Sword, and shouts that he is the hero who will protect humanity. Asking everyone there to pay attention to him, he continues his attack, cutting everything in his path, breaking the ground around him. People are impressed and celebrate watching all this, and begin to shout Lin Feng's name. The association's receptionist thinks this young man is truly amazing. The Demon King, watching calmly, remembers that the Canine Corpse was an animal hunted in the city and killed by humans, and, after dying, its resentment clung to the magic tower and condensed into an A-class demon. It's a rare species, but apparently, most humans are already used to it. Meanwhile, Feng continues slicing the monster with his sword. The Canine Corpse falls dead to the ground, and the humans celebrate Feng's deed. The Demon King, seeing this, remembers that when this demon receives many attacks, it pretends to be dead, and then comes back even stronger, an S-class monster. After defeating the monster, Feng sheathes his sword stylishly, while the people shout his name, saying they love him. Leah and Tian are happy to see that Feng succeeded, while the Demon King only looks on, knowing what comes next. Lin Feng, all proud, thinks that the only thing he did was tame an A-class puppy, and as soon as he seals the magic tower, his name will be recognized all over the world. Suddenly, he feels the ground tremble and his eyes widen. The Canine Corpse opens its eyes, rises, and charges at Feng, but this time as an SS-class demon. Lin Feng looks back and wonders how this is possible. The monster, furiously attacking, spits fire. Feng is in shock and tries to protect himself, screaming as he sees that he's going to die there. The power of the dog destroys everything. Laya thinks they're going to die and rushes to save her fiancé, while the Demon King jumps in to help. He passes by the demon and thinks that Lin Feng cannot die yet because he must find the divine object and only then kill him and destroy the object. He attacks with his power, striking the dog's head. Leah and Feng turn around and are astonished to see what was happening. The Demon King turns, and a sinister aura takes over the place. He asks if the demon does not recognize its master. The dog senses his aura and lies down, trembling in front of him. The Demon King extends his hand with magic and orders, "Disappear." The dog begins to run desperately and flees, passing by everyone there. People wonder what happened and why that beast was scared and ran away from Qing Feng. A man asks why the beast became so strong suddenly, and another replies, questioning whether it was the beast that got stronger or Lin Feng who got weaker. Laya carries Feng, all broken, and thinks Qing Feng must be very strong to scare that beast. She looks at him and thanks him, asking how he won so easily. The protagonist just smiles and says that maybe the demon looked strong on the outside but was weak inside. In fact, he thinks it doesn't matter. The important thing was to save Feng, who must also be grateful now. Feng looks seriously at him, grabs him by the collar, and shouts that Qing Feng used some special trick to scare that dog, and asks if he knew it would get stronger suddenly, and didn't say it just to be able to humiliate him. He becomes furious and shouts if he is happy now, asking if he is enjoying the feeling of everyone admiring him. The protagonist remains calm, while Feng repeatedly shouts that it's all his fault. Lin says he's a scoundrel because he watched him get beaten in front of everyone and just stood there with his arms crossed. The Demon King listens to everything in silence and thinks that not all humans deserve to be saved. Laya approaches them until suddenly the protagonist grabs her arm and twists it, making Feng scream in pain. He says there was no special trick, it was just a normal Class A demon, and emphasizes that Feng is the only incapable one who failed at playing hero and is making up excuses to avoid embarrassment, and he won't be part of this cheap theater. Feng gets irritated at hearing this. In the background, the receptionist asks why Feng is so irritable and still blaming the one who saved him. The chubby one says that this Lin Feng blames others without reason and without evidence. Tiantian comments that from what she saw, he failed and wants to regain his pride. The receptionist recalls that the great prophet is also dead, and only Lin Feng and Qing Feng were at the crime scene, and asks the two who they think committed the crime. Tiantian notes that suddenly Lin Feng became very strong, and questions if he is using some kind of forbidden art. Meanwhile, Feng continues furious with the whole situation. He thinks everyone is stupid and can't even see through this guy's disguise. Suddenly, the Demon King releases his arm. He is confused, and the protagonist extends his hand, saying, "It's all right, it was just a misunderstanding." Lin is furious with this attitude, thinking that this guy is playing innocent and is taking advantage of the situation. The two shake hands and face each other. Feng says he lost his composure after being hit by the dog and asks for forgiveness for his rudeness and for being saved. With a forced smile, he asks Qing Feng to take care of him in the future. The fake Qing Feng says there is no need to be so formal and that he should be the one thanking. The Demon King, with a sinister expression, approaches Feng and says, "Thanks to you, I'm not the only suspect anymore, since it was me who killed the great prophet." Feng is shocked to hear and prepares to throw a punch while the protagonist raises his arms. Suddenly, Leah appears holding Feng's arm and asking what he is doing in front of everyone and why he is pursuing Qing Feng. He turns, irritated, and pulls his arm back, saying it's all right. He looks at the protagonist and wonders who this guy is and what his goal is. He remembers that there is no mention of someone as strong as Qing Feng in the novel. It would be impossible for the original story of the novel to be wrong. The Demon King sees all of Lin Feng's fury before him and thinks that he only wanted to steal the sealing item from this fool. But if he becomes an obstacle, he will kill him without mercy. After all, if the item is destroyed, humanity will succumb sooner or later, and those who are annoying must die. The next day, at a cafe, coffee is served. The protagonist and Laya are sitting at the table. Laya thanks him for saving her life yesterday, and he says it was nothing, thinking he doesn't even remember that. Laya says that soon the team will obtain the sealing item, and mentions that Feng never let other people look at the map that contains the location of the divine item, but he said it was in the south. She, concerned, says the journey will be long and hopes he and Lin Feng can get along, asking him to ignore Feng's behavior. She emphasizes that she has known him since they were young and that he is actually a good person. The Demon King says he understands and thinks that, unfortunately, he is no longer himself. Ironically, a dirty soul from a parallel world has taken over the body of an innocent human from this world, taking advantage of a love that does not belong to him and telling himself that he will become a hero who will protect this world. The Demon King picks up the cup and, after taking a sip of coffee, spits everything out, leaving Laya confused. He starts to clean himself and thinks that the drink is horrible and that humans have weird tastes. Still cleaning himself, he asks Laya if she ever thought that her fiancé might be sick, and that's why he changed so suddenly. He smiles and asks if she wants Feng to go back to how he was before. He explains that in the south, there is an item that can be obtained simultaneously with their mission. Laya stands up, excited, asking if it's true, if he can really make Feng go back to how he was before. The Demon King, smiling, says of course he can. Elsewhere, Lin Feng was walking down the street, thinking that this current plot is just the prologue and that the real novel hasn't even started yet. However, he remembers that in the original prologue, Qing Feng did not return alive. He wonders how the great prophet could have died before the start of the novel. Feng stops to think and remembers that when he first saw that guy, he was acting suspiciously, seeming to be running away, but after he told him about the sealing team, he suddenly agreed to join. Feng starts to think that his reincarnation and appearance caused a deviation from the original plot of the novel, and thinks that the young man should leave that place and disappear without interruption. Probably that's why the original story didn't record an insignificant person who pretended to be Qing Feng for a while. He recalls a part of the novel that said, at that time, the culprit who killed the great prophet was never found, and he thinks that he really interfered with the novel by reincarnating, and that due to his transmigration, a person who should have disappeared ended up joining the important mission of finding the sealing item. Feng wonders if this will change the original ending of the story. Still walking, Lin Feng puts his hands to his head, thinking that he was just trash in his past life and would change his fate and become the protagonist after reincarnating in this world, but didn't think it would cause so many problems. Suddenly, he notices something. He sees his fiancée inside the cafe and, upon a closer look, realizes she is with Qing Feng and wonders what they are doing there. Lin clenches his teeth in anger but calms down, thinking that the plot will never change and that he is the only one in this world with an omnipotent point of view and will get everything he wants. After all, he is the chosen one. The next day, the sealing team is gathered at the Association of the Awakened, and the director says it is absolutely necessary for humanity that they obtain the sealing item from the magic tower, and Feng will lead the team. The director asks them to leave immediately. Feng starts to leave. He looks at the Demon King and thinks, just you wait. That's all, folks. If you enjoy the video, subscribe and hit the bell. Thanks. They set out on the mission and soon encounter demons, which begin advancing toward the group. More and more monsters keep coming. The protagonist uses his powers to attack, while Feng wields his sword. The team, completely united, fights tirelessly against the demons. Feng comments that the demons aren't strong individually, but in a horde, they are difficult to face. The Demon King thinks he must have some mental problem for being there, helping humans kill demons. Suddenly, he notices something. Someone from the team appears shouting, draws their sword, and uses the ability Poison Element. He thrusts his sword into the ground, which emanates power everywhere. The power starts hitting the demons, and a massive shockwave spreads throughout the area, wiping out all the monsters. When the dust settles, we see the man with his sword embedded in the ground. His name is Liu. He sighs and sheaths his sword. The protagonist looks at him and thinks that this guy isn't bad at all. Tiantian, impressed, says that what he did was amazing. Liu, embarrassed, comments that he's not good at hand-to-hand combat, but he's effective against hordes. He emphasizes that he can only be useful in moments like this, and Feng, looking at him, thinks he was right. He turns to the team and says he has something to tell everyone. Feng explains that the artifact is just ahead, but the terrain is difficult, and no one has any idea what monsters they might encounter, making it very risky. Besides, they've been fighting non-stop for the past few days. He suggests that everyone return to the city to rest, while he will explore ahead first. The Demon King just listens and remains silent. The whole group is concerned. Liu says it's not a good idea, and Laya asserts that he can't go alone, as it could be too dangerous. Lin Feng argues, saying that as the leader of the group, it's his responsibility, and finding the safest path is his duty. He starts to leave, stating that he's already made his decision, while the group tries to convince him to stay. The protagonist watches everything in silence. Liu begins to cry, saying that their leader is a good person, while the Demon King finds this pathetic. Feng smiles and thinks that Liu was indeed very effective. He continues walking and thinks that Liu is a rising star, born in the demon's lair and tempered in the deep poison caves, and will soon be an SS rank. However, his relationship with him will be short-term cooperation. Feng recalls that, in the original script, Liu was the protagonist's right-hand man, and his loyalty made him a crucial part of the protagonist's path to success. This happened because, in the original novel, to purify the toxin in his body, the protagonist used several rare ingredients to prepare an S-class purification potion, and since then, Liu would sacrifice his life for him if necessary. However, now, before the story begins, Feng intends to dominate him before the real protagonist appears. And not only does he intend to obtain the artifact, but also to become the protagonist, the new hero of this world. He looks back and asks the group to wait for him in the city, and when he returns, they will all go together. He bids farewell to the team and thinks that few people know where to find the ingredients for the purification potion. And fortunately, he clearly remembers the location in the original novel. With that, Liu will soon become his loyal subordinate. The Demon King just watches Feng walk away. He thinks that although he doesn't know much about human nature, he feels that Lin Feng is not the altruistic type. Suddenly, Laya comments that she heard about an underground auction house not far from there, and that she's going to check it out. She says she'll meet the others in the city in a few days. Tiantian likes the idea and decides to go with her. Leah starts to leave and looks at the protagonist. She thinks that if it's true that Lin Feng's soul was devoured by a demon, and that's why he suddenly changed, then she must get the item capable of cleansing souls at the auction and bring the real Lin Feng back. Leah and Tiantian leave together. The guy with the bazooka, named Gao, says that now that only the three of them are left, they should head to the city to rest. Suddenly, the protagonist asks them to wait, leaving Gao surprised. The big guy asks the protagonist if he has any problem with returning or if he's dissatisfied with Lin Feng's decision. He remembers that Feng is angry with this Qing Feng, so he must not be a good person. The fake Qing Feng says he is deeply moved by Leader Feng's decision to explore ahead alone, but is worried about him. He suggests to Gao that they secretly follow Feng to ensure he doesn't encounter any danger and to help him if necessary. The big guy gets excited about the idea and agrees, emphasizing that he's also concerned about his master. And Liu, excited, says that the protagonist is also a good person. Leah and Tiantian, who were leaving, overhear the entire conversation, and Laya thinks that Qing Feng is genuinely worried about her fiancé and that, deep down, he is a good person. The protagonist, smiling, says that everything he does is for the good of humanity. However, he is actually thinking that now he will discover Feng's true objective. Sometime later, Feng arrives at the S-class dungeon called the Demonic Chessboard. He recalls that according to the original novel, an ingredient called Purification Crystal is somewhere on the board, but he doesn't remember on which piece. Suddenly, he is shocked, starts sweating cold, and wonders what this feeling of fear is. Looking back, he notices that the king starts to move and runs when he realizes it is heading toward him. The king approaches Feng and begins to unleash its spirit. Lin can't believe what he's seeing. The king's spirit starts to bring its hand closer to Feng, who draws his sword and defends himself. Feng thinks he won't hold out much longer. The king strikes the ground, but Feng manages to get out before being hit. Another piece notices that he is vulnerable and attacks him from behind. Still in the air, Feng realizes that another spirit is about to attack him, and he narrowly escapes. Looking around, he notices that this piece is a pawn. Suddenly, he hears something, and turning around, he sees the spirit of the knight. He draws his swords and says that he will finish off the knight with his S-class horse-cutting sword. He attacks, but the knight manages to break his sword, holding it with its mouth. Feng is incredulous at what he sees. Countless vengeful spirits who died on the chessboard have their souls devoured by the pieces. They are confined to this place forever, and the cycle continues. With each battle, these chess pieces devour countless vengeful soul hunters after their tragic deaths. They are much stronger than S-class. Feng realizes he is in trouble and begins to use a power. Suddenly, wings appear on his back, and he leaps and hovers in the air. Feng starts to draw his sword until suddenly he notices that the queen is about to attack him. He is shocked, and just as he thinks of doing something, the queen delivers a brutal slap that sends him crashing to the ground, breaking everything where he lands. Feng lies on the ground and soon notices something approaching. The king appears above him, leaving him terrified. The king and queen approach Lin Feng. He sees this and thinks it's his end. The king starts to extend his arm, which comes closer and closer. Feng covers his eyes, incredulous that he is about to die there. Suddenly, a hand appears, holding the king's head, and with a single blow, the protagonist shatters the king. Feng remains lying on the ground as the king's pieces fly everywhere until he notices that he was saved and wonders who it could be. He thinks that whoever it is moves very quickly. Feng looks around and can't believe that in milliseconds, all the pieces were destroyed. He tries to see who is doing this until suddenly, Gao and Lu appear, leaving him surprised. Gao runs to help him, asking if he's okay, and Feng, irritated, asks why they are there. The big guy explains that Qing Feng was worried about him, so they decided to follow him to help if he was in danger. Liu confirms everything and even questions Feng for challenging an S-class dungeon alone, emphasizing that he was lucky that Qing Feng had the idea to follow him. Feng is speechless upon hearing this. He can't believe that Qing Feng was the one who destroyed everything there. The protagonist, amidst the wreckage, just stretches his fist calmly. Suddenly, souls begin to emerge, leaving him surprised. One of the souls approaches and offers a crystal to the protagonist, who wonders if all these souls belong to the hunters who were killed on the chessboard. He takes the crystal and understands that the souls there are thanking him for freeing them, even though they know he is the Demon King. This crystal he received is a rare material called the Purification Crystal. Lin Feng observes the scene and thinks he's in big trouble since the Purification Crystal has fallen into Qing Feng's hands. The protagonist looks at him with a serious expression. Everyone there looks at the protagonist with the crystal in his hand, and he notices from Feng's gaze that he wanted the item. He starts walking toward Feng and says, "It's a shame, but now the crystal is his." The Demon King thinks that, although he doesn't know Feng's objective, it must be a valuable item. Gao, excited, says they are lucky to have Qing Feng around, and that now they should work together as a team, while Lin Feng seethes with anger because he can't fight Qing Feng for the crystal in front of so many people, and if he'd had a little more time, he would have been able to defeat the king. Out of nowhere, Feng shouts that they don't need to worry about him, startling Gao and Lin. Feng starts running away from them, yelling that they should go back because he's going to explore the place alone. Gao and Lu shout for him to return. Feng thinks that even without the purification crystal, he can make a semi-finished purification potion. Although the effect won't be as good, it should be enough. The protagonist just stays silent, watching the scene. He thinks that the more Feng tries to hide, the more obvious it becomes that he has ulterior motives, and he will find out exactly what Feng is planning. Shortly afterward, in the S-Class dungeon, Dry Skeletal Lake, Feng arrives and finds the protagonist on top of a giant skull, holding an item. The protagonist, holding a rare material called the Three Flames Pill, smiles and says, "Hi," asking how Lin Feng is doing. Feng, irritated, can't believe the protagonist has already arrived there and taken the item. He turns around and starts to leave. Shortly after, Feng becomes enraged upon encountering the protagonist again. He had just finished the A-Class dungeon, Bone Cliffs, and obtained the Dragon Bone Inlay item. And the same happened in the S-Class dungeon, Whispering Wind Abyss, where the protagonist obtained the unmatched water item. Feng starts going crazy with anger. Night falls, and Feng is screaming in frustration because he hasn't been able to obtain any of the rare materials, and he can't even complain about it. Behind him, Gao tries to explain that Qing Feng is just concerned about him. Feng just watches the scene, holding all his items. He thinks it's strange that Lin is trying to get rid of them to obtain the items, because despite being rare and valuable, Feng doesn't seem like someone without money, so why would he need these items? Liu approaches the protagonist, asking for help in persuading Feng, until he suddenly notices that the items in the protagonist's hands are the ones he's been desperately searching for years. He gets excited and begs to take a look at these items, leaving the Demon King confused. The protagonist starts manipulating the items and exclaims, "Refine," and soon the items begin to be refined. Then he says, combine, and an S-Class purification potion is formed. The protagonist holds it in his hand, and Lu asks if that's really the legendary S-Class purification potion. He comments that he asked several high-class alchemists, but none were able to make it. The Demon King asks if Lu really needed the potion and suddenly throws it to him, saying he doesn't need it. Lu starts sweating and asks, stuttering, if that was really serious. Astonished, he shouts, asking if Qing Feng is going to give him the potion just like that. Lu thinks that with this, he'll be able to completely purify the poison that has accumulated in his body over all these years. Suddenly, the protagonist notices something, and out of nowhere, Lu hugs his leg, crying and saying that Qing Feng is a good person, and that from now on, he'll be his most loyal follower. The Demon King yells at Lu to stop it, emphasizing that it's just an S-Class potion. Lu is confused but continues hugging the protagonist's leg, exclaiming that he didn't even ask for anything in return, and that he will definitely follow him. The protagonist says he's disgusting and tries to push him away. He becomes angry because as the Demon King, he has now gained another human follower, which is very irritating. Lin Feng watches the scene of the Demon King trying to push Lu away, who is clinging to his leg like a leech. He goes mad with rage seeing that Lu has already been won over by Qing Feng. The protagonist turns and notices something. He sees Feng with a frustrated expression and wonders why he would be feeling that way. He looks at his leg and sees that Lu is still there, clinging and crying, and starts to wonder why Feng was gathering the items for the potion that Lu had been searching for years. The Demon King then realizes that Lin Feng's plan was to have Lu as his eternal follower. The two stare at each other, and the protagonist continues trying to understand how Feng knew the location of the items for the potion. He can't comprehend how Lin is so sure that the real Qing Feng is already dead, and thinks he'll have to wait until Leah brings the soul-restoring item to find out. Lin sighs and turns, calling the group to return and rest until Leah and Tian Tian come back. The protagonist just watches him, while Lin grits his teeth in anger. Feng looks back and thinks he won't let this Qing Feng ruin his plans. In the city, inside the hotel, Feng calls Gao, who bows and asks how he can help. Lin looks at him seriously and orders Gao to kill Qing Feng. Gao is shocked to hear this and says that Lord Qing Feng is a good person and has already saved them several times. Lin, with a sinister look, tells Gao to just follow his orders and reminds him that Gao has been by his side since they were young, questioning if he isn't the servant he trusts the most. Gao argues that Qing Feng's power is unimaginable and that he won't stand a chance. Feng, smiling, asks if Gao can't use a forbidden technique to elevate himself to the legendary SS class for a short period. Gao, desperate, explains that such a technique would cost him all his remaining lifespan and reminds him that his family has served Feng's for generations, and that, when they were young, Feng even promised to treat him as family. Lin coldly responds, "So what?" Lin looks directly into Gao's eyes and asks if the loyalty he swore no longer holds value. Moreover, Feng argues that he will become the hero who obtained the sealing item, carrying the future of humanity. Lin questions if Gao shouldn't make a small sacrifice for the future of humanity. Gao's eyes widen, and he closes them in anguish, saying he understands. He bows before Feng and says he's willing to make that sacrifice, but not for the future of humanity, only for the oath he made to him. Feng thinks that everything he said is nonsense, and Gao believed it. In the city's garden, the Demon King was walking, just reflecting on everything. He stops and notices something in the fountain's water. Suddenly, a giant piece of ice comes toward him, but he manages to jump away. He lands on the ice and wonders if someone is trying to kill him. Out of nowhere, many pieces of ice begin to rise from the fountain toward the sky. Everything around the protagonist freezes. He is surprised to see how the entire lake froze in an instant, and knows that this must be the work of an SS-class human specialist. The pieces of ice start moving, all heading toward him, until they fall to the ground where the protagonist was standing. Footsteps begin to echo on the ice. It was Gao who had done this. His eyes were completely red due to the SS-class forbidden technique, which was already consuming his remaining lifespan. Gao hears a noise and turns around. It was the Demon King, who had freed himself from all the ice. The protagonist notices that he has a bleeding cut on his face and is surprised. He begins to smile sinisterly and, looking at Gao, says that he is the first human to manage to wound him. All the smoke dissipates, and they stand face to face. The protagonist says that although Gao is the first human to wound him, he won't go any further than that. His health and mana points are infinite, and Gao only took 1 point with his strike. Gao concentrates energy in his hand and says that he respects him, and therefore he will kill him with a single blow. The Demon King, still bleeding, smiles and says that it's fine. He wants to see the capabilities of an SS-class specialist. The blood running down the Demon King's face begins to freeze. He turns around and is shocked to realize this. He doesn't understand how even the blood that flowed from his face froze, and suddenly, he begins to feel immense pain, as if all his blood were freezing. Gao looks at him and says, "That's exactly what's happening. He can control all types of liquids, including blood." Unexpectedly, Gao starts to notice something strange. He says that Qing Feng's blood seems different from others, and he can't fully control it. Gao then focuses, exuding a sinister aura, and says he'll change his method. The sky begins to darken, and a storm starts brewing, with Gao emitting a dark aura. The Demon King looks at this and realizes that the intense dark energy is mana. He asks how a human dares to use demonic mana, and if Gao isn't afraid of becoming a berserker. Gao shouts that it's all for the young master and the glory of the Lin family. An intense flash occurs in the sky with the lightning. Gao concentrates even more mana, staring directly at the Demon King. The protagonist becomes apprehensive. Drops begin to fall from the sky, intensifying until they turn into waves of power, which start approaching the protagonist. The waves hit him until, out of nowhere, a colossal lightning bolt falls from the sky and strikes him. Gao begins to scream and concentrates even more power. He unleashes his power, which descends from the sky, causing an absurd impact. Everything around them was frozen. Gao looks up and suddenly feels something and collapses to the ground, trembling. He feels relieved because it's finally over, but he knows his life will soon end as well. Out of nowhere, he sees someone approaching and can't believe what he sees. The Demon King approaches, and Gao asks how this is possible. The Demon King, smiling, says that it's exactly as he said, it's over. He adds that Gao is quite impressive for managing to reduce some of his life points, though it doesn't mean much. With a sinister aura, he says that now it's his turn. Gao can't believe what he's seeing. The protagonist places his hand on Gao's face and smiles. Gao tries to argue, but then lowers his head and says Qing Feng can kill him. After all, he won't stay alive for much longer. He thinks it's fine because it has always been his wish to sacrifice himself for the Lin family. With his head bowed, Gao asks for it to be quick. The Demon King begins to use his magic and explains that even if he doesn't kill him, he'll still die due to the side effects. He says that Gao overestimated himself by sacrificing his life to activate the forbidden technique. Suddenly, Gao realizes that he's actually being healed. Confused, he asks why the hell Qing Feng is healing him. The protagonist responds that he never said he would kill him and thinks that he doesn't want any more trouble, and his goal was never a secondary character like Gao. The big guy, shocked, asks how he can be so generous when just minutes ago he was trying to kill him. The protagonist, smiling, says he was moved by Gao's loyalty and truly respects people like him. He thinks that any random excuse will do since his goal isn't to kill 1 or 2 humans, but to destroy the sealing item and eliminate all of humanity. So, he must think long-term. Besides, there's someone watching everything. It was Leah, who was hiding behind a tree. She thinks Qing Feng is truly a good person and has never seen anyone so strong and yet so just. The protagonist pretends not to know that someone is hiding and extends his hand to Gao. The Demon King tells Gao that he will pretend to be injured to help him explain everything to Lin Feng. Gao widens his eyes, astonished by such kindness. He grabs the protagonist's hand and thanks him for his generosity. The big guy gets up and starts to leave. The Demon King concludes that he has already dealt with one problem and glances sideways at the tree, thinking that there's another problem left. He wonders if young Leah is suspicious of him because he showed too much strength. Suddenly, the protagonist crouches down and places his hand on his chest with an expression of pain. Leah sees this and is shocked. She runs over, asking if Lord Qingfeng is okay. Leah kneels beside him and asks what happened. With a pained expression, he thinks that he has successfully fooled Leah. Leah helps him up and says she already knew, as no one could be unscathed after blocking an attack from someone of SS rank, and she bets that he was just pretending to be strong. The protagonist looks at Leah suspiciously and asks why she is there. He also asks if she obtained the soul-restoring potion. She says she did and bought the potion at a high price. Worried, she says that if she gives the potion to Lin Feng, he will become suspicious of her. Moreover, if his soul isn't possessed, the potion will harm his body. Suddenly, the protagonist begins to move his hand towards Leah's face, making her blush. He gently caresses her face and says that he thinks she might be the cause, leaving Leah confused and embarrassed. The Demon King looks into Leah's eyes and says that she is very beautiful and that he is sure everyone thinks the same. Perhaps the target of that soul is her. He emphasizes that he is concerned about her safety. Leah is delighted to hear this and asks if he really thinks she is beautiful. She thinks that many men have complimented her, but coming from him, she felt enchanted rather than repulsed. The protagonist says that although she and Lin Feng are engaged, he is worried about her safety. Leah lowers her head, looking at the potion, and says she understands. She starts to run away, thanking him for his concern and assuring that she will make sure Feng drinks the potion. The Demon King thinks, greed, obsession, envy, apathy, and lust. Humans are easy to manipulate. The protagonist notices another person hidden in the tree and thinks that there's another one who is easy to manipulate. It was Gao hiding there, who heard everything and wonders if Master Lin Feng is really possessed and not himself anymore. Sometime later, Lin Feng, Tiantian, Liu, and Leah are sitting at the table, eating. Liu asks why only they are there and where Qingfeng and Gao are. Lin says they don't need to wait for them and should start eating now. He looks at Leah and comments that while she was away, he explored some dungeons and is familiar with them, so she can relax and follow him. Leah agrees and anxiously thinks that she has to make Lin drink that to be sure that Qingfeng is right. She turns to Lin and, offering the potion, says she heard he got hurt 2 days ago and made some medicines to restore his health. Feng hugs her and thanks her for worrying about him. And, grabbing Leah's butt, he says that in the future, he will take good care of her. Leah becomes extremely embarrassed, redder than a tomato. Liu notices and asks what happened, and Leah says it was nothing. Still blushing, she thinks that there's no way Lin Feng would do something like that. He has always been shy since he was young. She concludes that Qingfeng must indeed be right. Feng, mocking, asks what happened while she pushes him away. Suddenly, Liu and Tiantian notice someone arriving. Gao appears at the door, and Liu, surprised, asks if Gao was on a mission. Lin Feng is happy to see Gao and thinks that if he has returned, he must have completed the mission. Lin stands up and says that he is finally back, as he was worried about him. The big guy says, lamenting, that to use the forbidden technique this time, he had to sacrifice 20 to 30 years of his life. However, in the end, Feng suddenly interrupts him, saying that it's okay because the sacrifice is worth it for the completed mission. Feng calls everyone to leave, but suddenly, he is shocked to see Qingfeng back there. The protagonist approaches and sarcastically asks why Lin is surprised to see him alive. Gao whispers to Lin that he has obtained some information, and out of nowhere, Lin brutally pushes him back. Furious, Lin Feng curses Gao, calling him useless. Leah runs over to them, calling out for Qingfeng. Frightened, she says that he must be careful because this Lin Feng is really strange. Feng, mad with rage, asks what Leah is doing, as she is his fiancée. Liu, observing everything, asks Tiantian if she doesn't think Qing Feng and Lin Feng are conflicting a lot. Tiantian, smiling, says no, they've always been at each other's throats. Feng glares at Gao and says it's all this idiot's fault, who can't even handle something so simple. Gao, in pain, starts to think that Feng was always shy but kind to his servants. And even seeing that he's injured, Feng continues to treat him like this. He gets up and concludes that this really shouldn't be the real master, and he worries because the real one might be in danger. Tiantian calmly asks if they start fighting, who Liu would help. Liu, confused, asks who is fighting. Liu notices something, and Feng turns when he hears Gao calling him. The big guy approaches and calmly says that he failed in his mission, so he won't stop Feng from beating him. But before anything, Feng should drink the medicine so he doesn't worry about his health. Feng takes the medicine, and irritated says that Gao is trash who can't complete a simple mission. Feng then starts drinking the potion, thinking that he can't beat Gao's face with everyone watching. Suddenly, Feng feels something strange. He drops the bottle, which falls to the ground. Feng sees the soul of the real Lin Feng, exclaiming that he is the real one, and people don't care about that idiot who took his body. Feng screams, asking how it could be him. Everyone there is scared, and Tiantian asks what happened to the captain and who he was talking to. The Demon King, watching the scene, thinks that Lin better run from there, even though he is the only one who knows the location of the sealing artifact of the tower. Feng will not prevail over him. The souls of the real and the false. Lin Feng begin to fight within Lin's mind, driving him mad. He pulls the tablecloth, scattering everything, and starts running. Lin thinks that the real Lin Feng is fighting him for ownership of this body, and he can't let everyone there discover that he is the fake. Laya tells Gao that something is wrong with Lin, and they don't know what to do. Meanwhile, the Demon King and Tiantian watch everything calmly. After a while, elsewhere, the real Lin Feng manages to reclaim his body and begins to write a letter that says, "I am Lin Feng, the real Lin Feng. My soul that came from another world will soon disappear because I can't regain my body. This might be the only time I can have ownership of this body, and with this chance, I need to leave something useful as the triumph of that bastard who came from another world." In his memory, there is a novel called The Hero Defeats the Demon King, which tells about the things that will happen in this world in the future, and since I memorized everything from the novel, I will leave it with someone I can trust. The story begins with a young genius. His name is Li He. He will become a hero in the future, the protagonist of this novel. The first time he leaves his hometown, he unintentionally kills a hopeless fool who blindly runs into the entrance of a tavern. That fool's name is Lin Feng, and due to this incident, Li He angers the Lin family. Thus, he faces countless dangers. In the end, before the first snowflake falls, the chosen one, Li He, kills the Demon King. Looking into the memory of this soul from another world, it's clear that this young man named Qing Feng is just and kind. The real Lin Feng summons a spirit transmission bird and thinks that if Qing Feng can defeat this soul from another world, he will receive the letter as soon as he returns to the association's headquarters. The bird flies off carrying the letter, and the real Feng concludes that if Qing Feng receives the letter, he can use this novel to help the true protagonist of the novel and save this world from the Demon King. And that will be the only great thing he did in his life. He sighs and reflects that his soul is growing weak and that he will soon lose control over this body. He collapses onto the table and his soul fades away. Shortly after, the false soul regains control of the body and thinks that this is becoming problematic, and he can't let anyone discover his true identity. Thus, he will have to get rid of everyone tomorrow. The next day, in the 10,000 Demons Cave dungeon, the demons stood still like statues. Tiantian is impressed with the place and says that it's as expected from an SS-class dungeon with a divine item hidden within, and she never thought she would have the chance to be there. Liu asks why the demons aren't moving and concludes that it must be some method of Captain Lin Feng. They climb a staircase and notice the sealing item shining ahead. Feng thinks that everything is exactly as he planned. Laya asks Gao to prepare and retrieve the item. Out of nowhere, Lin Feng launches an attack against his team from behind. He had taken the item and concludes that the power of the fragment is indeed powerful. Gao, frightened, asks why the master is attacking them, while Laya tries to defend herself. Lin Feng rushes past everyone, saying that they should stay in that dungeon and be killed by the demons. He thinks that after killing everyone there, no one will doubt his true identity anymore. He runs towards the exit, laughing. Eyes begin to appear in the darkness, and someone shouts, "Watch out!" Suddenly, a demon appears, enraged, and soon, many demons start waking up and heading toward the group. The demons begin to surround them, and Laya screams for them to run, while Tiantian says they won't have time since Lin Feng managed to injure them with the attack. The Demon King orders again for them to run while he stays behind. Everyone is shocked by this. They start to leave, and Gao says they must go quickly so as not to waste Qingfeng's sacrifice. And the protagonist says he will close the door to hold off the demons. Tiantian thinks that although he is only pretending, his action is actually saving people, and hopes that he successfully kills the fake Qingfeng, or rather, the Demon King. He closes the door and thinks that with everyone outside, he can now reveal his true identity to his followers. He turns around and says, "It's been a long time since I've seen you, my followers." The demons continue advancing towards him. The Demon King begins to prepare and says that it's been a long time since he left the magic tower, and, throwing a punch, asks if they have forgotten who the Demon King is. The demons stop, and the protagonist begins to focus when, suddenly, a power begins to strike the demons and takes over everything around them. The Demon King, exuding immense power, asks if they remember now. Soon, the Demon King appears sitting calmly, petting the devil's dog, while the demons revere him. Glory to the Demon King. Now, with his troops, the protagonist says it's time to catch Lin Feng. Meanwhile, Feng continues running with the item and thinks that now that the sealing item has forged a blood contract with him, no one will be able to rectify the seal except him, the true hero. Suddenly, he notices something and is shocked. It was the protagonist, with a demon army alongside him. The Demon King, now in his true form, says hello, and Qingfeng finds this being very familiar. With that terrifying smile, he looks up and concludes that he doesn't have time to think and must escape immediately through that exit. The Demon King orders his army to kill Feng and obtain the divine item. The demons advance to attack Feng, who draws his sword and begins to fight bravely, taking down one of them. Feng starts to use the demons to climb and head towards the exit. The dog tries to catch him, but Lin escapes, jumping onto the sinister skull and almost reaching the exit. The Demon King stands up and says that the game is over. The devil's serpent manages to grab Feng by the leg. Feng strikes the serpent several times, but it continues to hold him, and another sinister serpent approaches, drooling to kill him. Feng realizes he's in deep trouble until suddenly, the other serpent bites him brutally, spilling blood everywhere. The serpents manage to tear off one of Lin's legs, who in great pain summons his sacred wings. Surrounded, he thinks that he won't give up and will escape no matter what. He starts flying toward the exit, followed by the demon army. The Demon King watches everything and orders his army to continue. Another demon manages to reach Feng and bites his arm fiercely. Lin, severely injured, tries to defend himself with all his strength, but more demons reach him and attack him cruelly. Feng uses all his strength and manages to break free. Even though he's falling apart, Lin continues to try to escape, saying that there is still hope. The Demon King laughs at his words and responds that hope is the most brutal form of violence. Feng, now close to the exit, thinks that as soon as he escapes, he will be the hero, and that's all that matters. Suddenly, he is shocked. It was the Demon King, sitting at the exit, waiting for him. Lin wonders how he is so fast, as he was at the back a second ago. The Demon King says that Lin Feng will not escape. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurs, hitting Feng and throwing him down. He falls violently to the ground. Still alive, Lin begins coughing, while the Demon King extends his hand to take the sealing item, but the item creates a magical barrier, pushing the protagonist away. The Demon King, using Qing Feng's appearance, looks at his hand and wonders what's happening, why the sealing item is rejecting him. Lin, emanating an aura, laughs and asks if Qing Feng is still alive and came there to retrieve something. Feng, covered in blood, asks if he wants to take the divine item and become the hero of humanity, and emphasizes that he has no chance because the item made a pact with him. It can only belong to him. Even killing him won't break the contract. The protagonist thinks that this contract will be a problem. Out of nowhere, the true Lin Feng soul emerges and glares at the protagonist. The soul looks at the body and says that he won't let that imposter get away with it and will drag him to hell. The protagonist, seeing this, realizes that Lin Feng's soul appeared temporarily because the reincarnated soul became unstable due to the injuries. The soul begins to try to expel the sealing item, which starts emitting colossal energy, and the true Lin Feng soul says that since they both share the same body, he can also release the contract. Feng manages to release the contract of the sealing item, which now returns to its ownerless state. Feng goes mad, screaming that that soul was an idiot because he obtained the item with a lot of hard work, and if he had sealed the Demon King in the tower, they would be heroes all over the world. Furious, he exclaims that now there's no doubt why he lived as trash and deserved to be killed by the protagonist at the beginning of the novel. The soul responds that no matter how much that imposter had the original novel and the blessing of the divine item's fragment, he was corrupted and cruel, and his actions would bring disaster to this world. He didn't do it thinking of saving the world. He did it only to achieve glory, even being willing to kill his own team for it. The protagonist starts to obtain the item and thinks that the fragment of the divine item is what humans will use to seal the Demon King in the tower. And it seems strange that, being the Demon King, he would form a contract with the item. Concluding that things are going in a strange direction, the protagonist manages to get the item in his hand, and Feng warns Qing Feng not to get too excited yet. He looks at the protagonist and says that he better not even think about killing him because his family will come after him until the ends of the earth, and no one will believe Qing Feng if he says he obtained the fragment, and he will have to return it one day. Feng draws his sword and tells Qing Feng that that damned Leah and Gao joined him, and that medicine they gave him had something wrong with it, and that's why that trash soul was able to possess the body. With a sinister smile, Feng says that when he returns to the association, he will kill all of them. But suddenly, Feng notices something. It was the soul of the true Lin Feng, stabbing his own throat with his sword, causing Feng's body to mirror the same action, leaving the Demon King surprised. The soul says that the reincarnated one was corrupted and won't let him use his body to cause havoc. Lin, with the sword at his throat, says that by doing this, he is killing them both. The true Lin Feng's soul tells the protagonist that he will give him the fragment of the item so that he can save this world. The protagonist, holding the item in his hand, is confused and questions whether Lin Feng is truly worthless, as he shows a lot of courage. The soul calmly says that he didn't expect to fall alongside an evil enemy, and even being a piece of trash, will have a heroic death. The soul fades away, and Lin begins coughing up blood, saying that he won't accept this, and finally dies with the sword embedded in his throat. The next day, the TV announces that the Hunters Association team has obtained the fragment of the divine item, and that once all the fragments are brought together, they will be able to seal the magic tower, giving new hope to humanity. People celebrate in the streets. The TV continues by saying that the leader of the team that obtained the fragment is Mr. Qing Feng, who has been named the savior of humanity. At the Hunters Association headquarters, the members celebrate the news. Liu comments to other hunters that Qing Feng is very generous because he put a lot of effort into finding high-level materials, refined them into a purification potion, and gave it without asking for anything in return. Gao also comments that Qing Feng is the kindest person he has ever met because he forgave someone who tried to kill him and even helped to search for the truth, leaving other hunters incredulous. Leah also says that Qing Feng is very handsome and believes that people will like him. In the corridors of the association's headquarters, people are talking about how Qing Feng is like one of those protagonists that only appear in fiction. A hunter says it's been a long time since he heard Qing Feng's name and emphasizes that he is a hidden expert. Another hunter responds that he was born to be a hero. The protagonist and Tiantian arrive at the headquarters, and she comments that the president said that Feng was immoral and tried to harm his team members many times. She continues by saying that the association decided to hide the existence of Lin Feng from everyone and announced that the new leader would be him, the Demon King, and all the glory is his. They keep walking, and Tiantian says that now everyone is spreading his heroic story, and everyone thinks he will become the savior who will kill the Demon King. The Demon King stops and says that no, all the glory actually belongs to Qing Feng. He remembers the soul of the true Lin Feng sacrificing himself to kill the evil one. The protagonist says that it's interesting how the true hero remains unknown, while Qing Feng, who is a cowardly and hypocritical person, has his name spread across the world. The protagonist begins to walk away, and Tiantian asks, "Demon King, oops, Mr. Benefactor, where are you going?" He responds that he is going to repay the gift he received because he doesn't like favors. Elsewhere, the director of the association and a woman are conversing. The director says that the soul she brought from another world seems to have died with the trash Lin Feng, and she responds that he doesn't need to worry because she can summon more souls from another world. This woman is the summoner of the parallel world, one of the 7 masters. She says that since no one will care if they reincarnate into the body of some trash, everyone will just think it's good that the trash suddenly changed. The director then asks if it wouldn't be unfair to those who are possessed, since they suddenly lose their body and identity, which is no different from dying. The summoner retorts, asking why he is so indecisive, since all this is for the peace of the world, and it would be good to sacrifice a few people for the greater good. And if he really thinks this way, then it is also unfair for the soul from the parallel world to be reincarnated in this world suddenly, instead of living peacefully in another world. They suddenly appear and play hero in a strange and dangerous world. She continues arguing that this is the agreement they, the summoners from another world, have reached. Using the power of prophecy as assistance, they write an exciting and bold novel, which makes them feel like saviors of this world. So let them serve this endless world, and if they die, another will come. The director listens with concern, and, lowering his head, says he understands, and it's a good plan. The director stands up and says it's a pity the great prophet has died, as he can no longer help her by writing novels. With a sinister aura and a terrifying look, he says that she too will soon die. The woman is shocked to realize that this was a transformation and not the director, and asks who he is. The merciless Demon King attacks her, making a hole that goes through her body, spraying blood everywhere. The Demon King, smiling, says he is someone who doesn't like reading bold novels. The woman begins to fall with a hole in the middle of her huge breasts, and spitting blood, asks why he killed her. The Demon King, holding the sealing item fragment, explains that a fool sacrificed himself and gave him that incredible item as a gift, and since he doesn't like favors, he wanted to pay him back with something. So he decided to help him take revenge on the one responsible for possessing that young man. One of the association members realizes and screams that the great summoner has died and calls everyone to come see what happened. While the members of the awakened association run in desperation, the Demon King, disguised as Qing Feng, slips away thinking that even though he only obtained a fragment, the humans also lost that fragment, and even if they collect the others, they won't be able to completely seal the tower. He wonders if he should now return to the magic tower or not. Suddenly, the receptionist arrives, screaming that she finally found him, as she has a letter for him that arrived a few days ago. The Demon King, surprised, asks who would write a letter to him. Upon opening it, he is surprised by the amount of words there, until suddenly, he realizes that it is a novel by Lin Feng, which the Great Summoner and the Great Prophet worked together to write, the so-called original novel. He reads the letter that said, "This must be the only time I manage to possess this body, and with this chance, I must leave something useful behind, an ace up the sleeve against that person from the other world. And with the help of this novel, Mr. Ching Feng will be able to become the true protagonist, who will save the world and defeat the Demon King." The Demon King exudes a hellish aura as he reads the letter and thinks that the real protagonist of the story has not yet appeared, and Lin Feng was just a useless extra. The real protagonist of the novel is someone named Li He, and in the end, at the moment the first snowflake falls, the chosen one, Li He, will kill the Demon King. So, how about staying in this world and killing this chosen one? Meanwhile, elsewhere, a giant monster emerges from the water, and a guy advances to attack it. The guy attacks with a powerful lightning bolt right on the forehead of the monster, and jumps back, killing the monster in a single blow. 3 other people celebrate the feat. The hairy one says he never thought a kid like him could defeat a C-rank monster. The redhead says he might be the first to pick up the monster's spoils. The guy sighs and says he doesn't need them, and confidently says they can divide them, as he has no interest in spoils of that level. This guy is Li He. The blonde asks if Li He would like to join their team, but Li He simply walks past them and says no, because he doesn't trust anyone and doesn't need companions. He opens the system saying all he needs is this. The system says, "Alert, defeat a water attribute monster mission complete. Reward, body strengthened 18 times. Li He comes from a normal border town, and half a month ago, a system window suddenly appeared in front of him. The system sends missions every day, and each time he completes one, he gets incredible rewards. By completing missions over and over, he continued to improve his strength and embarked on a path to become ever stronger." The guys in the background watch Li He, and the one in green comments that the kid is back to staring at nothing and gesturing alone. The one in armor replies that he heard he started to become known half a month ago, but he's always been discreet and doesn't care much about his job, and therefore, he's sure that in the future, he will make headlines. Li, with his arms wide open, thinks that, like the protagonist of each novel, only he can see the system and the missions. That's a skill that belongs only to the protagonist. However, he knows that if he wants to be strong enough, he must keep his mind clear and always be cautious. And even though he has a long way ahead, that day will come. Meanwhile, at the Association of the Awakened, the receptionist reminds the so-called Ching Feng that half a month ago, he asked her to inform him if any hunter named Li He appeared, and a person matching that description showed up at the reception today. He turns and asks her to take him to him quickly. They start walking and he asks which season they are in now. She replies that they are in autumn. At the reception, Li introduces himself and says he wants to join the association. The receptionist says she is sorry, but his level is too low and he still lacks enough hunting experience. However, if he wants, she can try to request for some branch of the association. Li thinks that now his strength is improving very fast, but his classification couldn't keep up the pace. But if he can't join the guild, he won't be able to get advanced information, and this may result in inconveniences for future system missions. Suddenly, someone touches his shoulder. It was Ching Feng, inviting him to join his team, and their next mission is to get the next fragment of the sealing artifact, and if he wants, he can. Suddenly, Li interrupts him, saying he doesn't need a companion. Li turns and walks away, saying no mission is necessary at the moment. He thinks that if he can't join the guild, he can go to some branch. And now that he's becoming stronger, he must stay steady and cautious. Suddenly, a notification appears and the system says, "Alert, join the Hunters Guild today, accept the mission, reward for completing the mission, increase mana limit 10 times. If denied, the mission will be automatically canceled and this mission and reward will never reappear." Li is surprised that today's mission has already appeared, and that is a problem. But despite everything, the reward is very good. The protagonist thinks this Li He is quite strange and wonders why he is standing staring at nothing. He remembers that this scene is very familiar, remembering Lin Xiao. Meanwhile, on the street, a guy stops a taxi. Upon entering, he asks the driver to take him to the headquarters of the Hunters Association as quickly as possible. The taxi driver, excited, asks if he is a hunter from the headquarters, and comments that half a month ago a guy named Qing Feng led a team and recovered a fragment of the artifact, and he is a great hero. The guy interrupts him, telling the taxi driver to stop talking nonsense and just go, as he is in a hurry. During the trip, this guy thinks that just today he was reborn in the time and space of the past, and now wants to prevent everything from happening, wants to prevent his death in this timeline. Today should be the day he would join the association, but he wants to prevent him from accepting the system mission and keep him away from that man. His name is Li He, the future Li He, the one who was reborn, and he wants to prevent the death of the current Li He since he does not know the man he is facing at the moment, the Demon King. Meanwhile, at the reception of the association headquarters, the receptionist says that they have recorded the information. Li He, 20 years old, a rank D hunter, and part of Mr. Qing Feng's team. The system appears saying, "Alert, join the Hunters Guild today. Mission complete. Reward, mana limit increased tenfold." Li He looks at the system and thinks that this way, he killed 2 birds with 1 stone. He spreads his arms as he receives his reward and thinks that maybe it's not so bad to practice with a high-ranked team. The system's suggestions are always right. Besides, he's feeling a monstrous strength, already sufficient for rank B, and wonders if he really is the chosen one. The receptionist looks at Li He, wondering what the hell this is, and Tiantian says he must be happy to join the association. It's no surprise he's acting strange. The Demon King, smiling, says he just got confidential information about the location of the second artifact fragment and calls Leah to leave. In the corridors of the headquarters, the girls are enchanted with Qing Feng, saying that he is really concerned about the future of humanity and is a true hero. The Demon King is embarrassed by the compliments and thinks that, in fact, the confidential information is something fake he made up to draw Liha's attention to some remote underground city and kill him quietly without anyone noticing. A crowd of girls surrounds the protagonist, asking for autographs and emphasizing that he thinks of the next generation, for he brought a rookie to his team and will train him. The Demon King blushes and smiles, but thinks no, he is just a Demon King who lost the blood-locking supplement of the magical tower and just wants to use the safest plan to avoid the strong humans of the city and sneakily escape to the underworld to kill him. In a suburban abandoned hotel, the protagonist says that everyone traveled all day, so they should rest there. The team sits around the fire, and the Demon King says that place used to be a small town, but was soon destroyed by monsters that emerged from the underground city, and now there should be no more humans there. With a suspicious look, he emphasizes that the place is in the desert and has many underground cities nearby, and therefore asks everyone not to walk around alone at night, and in the morning they will continue their journey. He continues explaining that tonight the men will sleep in one room and the women in another, and they will alternate to watch, and asks everyone to stay alert and follow his plan. Suddenly, a notification appears for Li He. He is surprised, as it is still midnight, and today's mission has already arrived. The system says, "Alert, go to a dungeon 3 kilometers north and kill an A-rank puppet. Accept this mission. Reward for completing the mission, an S-rank potion. If declined, the mission will be automatically canceled, and the mission and reward will not reappear." Li He looks at the system and is worried about the A-rank dungeon, as he is not strong enough yet. On the other hand, half a month ago, he could barely eat decent food, and now he has the opportunity to get an S-rank potion. Lade stands up and says he is leaving everyone surprised. He remembers that every guidance from the system is to make him stronger, and since he received this mission, he must be able to complete it, because he believes in the system and everything without its order, and he might be the son of destiny. Gao calls Li He's attention, asking if he didn't hear the leader's plans, and he replies that he has to resolve some personal matters and will return tomorrow morning without delay. Li thinks that if he wants to become stronger, he cannot take the same path as most, because there will always be critics. The team continues around the fire, and the protagonist tells Tiantian that he really shouldn't have brought the rookie without team spirit, and she replies that the boss saw his talent and wanted to refine it. Liu says that Lihei is weak and could die out there, as there are several A-rank dungeons nearby. The Demon King says that's fine. He must have his personal issues to resolve, so they should sleep now, as young Liha will return well. Meanwhile, Liha was in the A-rank dungeon, Paradox Stage. Lihei wonders if this is really the dungeon that the system mentioned, because where would the puppet be? Suddenly, the puppet falls with a sword behind him. Lihei is startled to realize that the puppet quickly attacks him with the sword, but he manages to defend himself. Lish tries to attack the puppet back, but it retreats and does a backflip, moving away from Lihei. He looks at his arm, which was wounded in the attack, and thinks that at the moment, he has no weapon or high-level potion, so he will have to endure it. The puppet jumps and starts to block all of Lihei's magical attacks. He soon tires and thinks that even attacking with all his might, he only managed to scratch it and can't do anything but keep dodging. He stops and thinks that there's no way out, and wonders if this is a predetermined test by the system or if he was impatient. Meanwhile, at the reception of the association headquarters, the future Lich bangs on the counter and asks the receptionist where Lihei is, and if she saw him today or not. The receptionist, frightened, says she is sorry, but the actions of the association's hunters cannot be informed to strangers. The man turns, furious, and starts to leave thinking that this means Lihei has already become a hunter. In other words, he, in this period of time, has already followed Qingfeng to carry out missions. He concludes that he must hurry to get to that place. Otherwise, he will soon die inexplicably, because at that time, he would never have guessed that it was a trap, and the true master of this system is... Meanwhile, at the abandoned hotel, Gao and Lu were sleeping while the protagonist was sitting at a table controlling the puppet. While controlling, he thinks that young Lihei, before he could become a hero, will die very young and in an unknown way, and above all, he still has a perfect alibi. Still controlling the puppet with his powers, the Demon King thinks that no one will doubt him. The puppets, the system panels, all by his orders, led him step by step into a trap. A system screen appears saying, "Central Control, dear Master, what is the next mission for Lihei?" The Demon King, smiling, says there won't be a next one. After all, Lihei will die tonight. Some time ago, at the Magic Tower, the Demon King walked leisurely and commented that it had been a long time since he returned to his home. But his palace is very comfortable, and since he killed Lin Feng, the human world became boring. The protagonist wondered when Lihei would appear. Suddenly, he looks to the ground and notices the system of Lin Xiao that he had broken. The Demon King picks up one of the parts and says he remembers that Lin Xiao at the time relied on this system's advice for all his best weapons and potions. The Demon King rebuilds the system and says that, in this case, his knowledge about humans must be very good, and asks the system to help find the boy named Lihei. The Demon King asks the system to find Lihei and bring him, giving him rewards so that he believes he is some kind of son of destiny, instead of spending decades practicing, as in the original novel. The system should let him follow the instructions step by step and get used to rapid progress with little effort. The system responds, "As ordered, I will take measures and bring him to you in half a month." The protagonist turns to the chair and calls it Lin Xiao, saying it's been a long time since he saw him, and asks how it feels to be a chair compared to being a human. The Demon King explains that he used to think all humans were like Lin Xiao, wise, cautious, and brave. The Demon King turns mockingly and says he has something to say. He says that Lin Feng, Lin Xiao's brother, is a hero like him, and the Demon King leaves, leaving only the chair there. Half a month ago, in a border town, Li He wakes up frightened, asking what that sound was. He wonders if it was his stomach, and suddenly, the system appears saying, "Notification, hello, congratulations on becoming the new host. Now complete daily missions to get rewards. Do you wish to accept the mission? Change your life from now on, and follow the path to become the strongest?" Lee is extremely confused by all this, but ends up accepting the mission. Back in the present, in the A-class dungeon, Lee advances furiously, charging power in his hand. He attacks the puppet, proclaiming himself the chosen one. He tries to punch the puppet, which dodges, tries again, and the puppet dodges once more. He readies another punch, thinking he can't give up, and tries to strike, but fails again. The puppet counterattacks with its sword piercing through Li He. Despite the pain, Li He manages to grab the puppet's arm, and with all his strength, attacks the puppet with his shock, completely destroying it. The protagonist, controlling the puppet, is surprised. Smiling, he thinks that even by sending the young man to an A-class dungeon, Li He managed to win, and if he weren't afraid of making him suspicious, he would have prepared an S-rank trap. The sinister aura of the Demon King takes over the place, and he thinks that young Li He is worthy of being the protagonist of the prophecy made by the Great Prophet and the Great Summoner. And if he hadn't taken care of it from the beginning, Li He would have become the next Lin Xiao in a few decades. The Demon King, smiling, extends his hand, saying that, unfortunately, Li He will not have the opportunity to grow, and summoning a puppet of himself, says that the young man is too eager to become stronger, and therefore will die tonight. In the dungeon, Li He wonders if it's over yet, as the system still hasn't delivered the rewards, and suddenly, the Demon King appears, leaving Li He in shock. The Demon King, sinisterly, asks what the young man is doing, if he's thinking about his last words or his next life. Li starts to sweat coldly and wonders what puppet this is, feeling a powerful sense of oppression. The Demon King violently attacks Li He without mercy. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the association, the future Li He returns, shouting that he wants to submit to a task. He says he will give money to anyone who accepts. He asks the receptionist if there is any hunter who uses spatial teleportation and asks her to take him to a place that has teleportation. Nervous, he thinks he needs to be quick, because if he doesn't succeed, the Demon King will kill him that night. In the association's conference room, the director says that if the Li He who just joined the barracks is indeed the child of the prophecy, then he grew up quite fast, because according to the prophecy, he would still have to strive for several decades to reach the current level. The director looks at the empty chairs and points out that since 1 or 2 months ago, everything is deviated from the original course in a mysterious way. The eternal Lin Xiao, the Great Prophet, and the Summoner have died successively. Worried, he says that now only 4 elders remain, and the future of humanity faces an unprecedented crisis. One of the elders says this serves as a lesson for those 3 for staying at the bottom of the Elders' Hall of Fame. The immortal died, the prophet did not foresee his own end, and the summoner summoned a loser. The young elder asks the president not to worry, for if Li He is really the child of the prophecy, even if he is impatient and makes mistakes, it would also give him the opportunity to start again. The director, surprised, asks if the elder would resurrect Li He, and the elder says that if he himself in the future makes Li He be reborn, then there should already be 2 Li He in this timeline. He continues saying that the abilities of the 7 elders flow among themselves, and the future changes again, and he doesn't know which direction this story will take. Back in the dungeon, the Demon King wields his sword and exclaims, "You will die tonight." The Demon King attacks Li He, but he manages to dodge and quickly flees, thinking he won't be able to match him. The protagonist sees Li He running away, and without wasting any time, chases after him, attacking him again. However, once again, Li He evades the attack, though this time he thinks it was a close call. He looks ahead and sees that the Demon King is attacking everything in front of him, and realizes that the Demon King's target isn't him. The Demon King destroys everything around him. and Lihei deduces that he is going to destroy the ground so that Lihei can no longer dodge his attacks. The protagonist destroys almost all the dungeon pillars, leaving only one. Lihei reaches it and thinks it's the end for him. Looking around, he realizes there's nowhere left to run, and the Demon King doesn't even need to kill him. Just destroy the last pillar, and he'll fall into the magma, facing a cruel death. Suddenly, the Demon King reaches him and grabs him. Lai is surprised by the protagonist's absurd speed. The Demon King, smiling, tells him that Lihei is mistaken and won't be killed so quickly, because with attributes like fire immunity, the magma won't burn him alive. The Demon King lets him go and says that Lihei might just be pretending to dodge the attacks and might have abilities like flying. He adds that after much thought, he has decided to kill Leah with his own hands. Laia responds that the Demon King is being overly cautious. With his dark aura, the Demon King says that the young man might have his heart on the right side, so he'll have to strike both sides, but then quickly changes his mind and says he'll simply cut off the young man's head and tear it to pieces since that's the safest method. With sarcasm, Lai says the protagonist is indeed good at delivering a final blow. He thinks that, after all, the Demon King is right because his heart is slightly positioned to the right. He lowers his head, cold sweat pouring down, wondering if he will die there. Out of nowhere, he is startled as he looks up and sees the Demon King's sword approaching rapidly. But suddenly, the Demon King stops and gets frustrated because someone is calling him. It was Laia, who had arrived, already opening the door and calling him. Laia looks at the protagonist, seated, and comments that they've just received information that a trace of the artifact fragment has been found near an SS-ranked dungeon. Lihei is confused to realize that the puppet had simply disappeared and sits down in relief, realizing he narrowly escaped death. Back at the abandoned hotel, Gao and Lu wake up, and Lu says that this information is incredible, and they will depart for the dungeon tomorrow. The protagonist stands up with a calm expression, reflecting that given the sheer danger of SS-ranked dungeons, he could let Lihei die in one of them. Meanwhile, at the reception, the receptionist informs the future Lihei that they found a hunter with spatial teleportation abilities who can speed up his mission and asks in which direction he wishes to travel. Future Lihei responds that to the southeast, there's an SS-ranked dungeon, and that's where he needs to be sent. Angry, he thinks that the fragment is indeed in that dungeon, and in this life, he not only wants to kill the Demon King, but also obtain the artifact fragment. Back at the abandoned hotel, Li was sitting, reflecting. Suddenly, he slams the table in anger because he almost died in the previous night's mission, and it seems he's still too weak. He concludes that he needs to increase his strength quickly. Out of nowhere, the system appears, saying, "Alert! Congratulations! You have completed the mission and will be rewarded with a random S-rank option. Do you wish to accept the next mission immediately? Reward: you will be promoted to S-rank." Lihei is impressed by the possibility of reaching S-rank, but he thinks that even so, this mission must be difficult, so he should proceed cautiously. He considers that maybe it's better to give up this time, because even though he wants to become stronger, he should take things more slowly. As he moves his finger closer to click decline, another system screen appears saying, "Osin, alert! If you accept this mission, you will receive an additional reward, mana multiplied by 100. Then, another screen appears saying, "Alert! Additional rewards, vitality multiplied by 100, strength multiplied by 100, designated S-rank potion." Suddenly, countless screens offering many rewards appear before Lihei, who is joyfully surprised. He looks at all the system screens and thinks that with so many rewards, he could become a powerful person of a higher rank. He is incredulous at how easy it is to become stronger and wonders if it's really necessary to train hard to reach his goals, thinking that maybe he had been too cautious before. Without a second thought, he clicks accept, saying that caution is for mediocre people, and geniuses must face challenges and unleash their innate abilities. He concludes that he really is the chosen one. Lihei leaves the abandoned hotel, and Tiantian calls out to him, telling him to prepare to go to an SS-ranked dungeon. Li He walks past Tiantian, bumping into her, leaving her confused, and says that from now on, he will no longer travel with them because he has personal matters to attend to. Irritated, Tiantian yells that this attitude is not cool, as they are all part of the same team and must follow Captain Qingfeng's orders. Li tells Tiantian to get out of his way, leaving her dumbfounded. Everyone there is surprised, and Gao yells that Li He is being arrogant and asks how he dares to treat Tiantian that way, saying he's going to teach the rookie a lesson. The Demon King, seeing this, invokes the system, and the system appears saying, "Understood, Master." Suddenly, the system obeys the protagonist and appears before Li He, saying, "This system supports the purpose of creating chosen ones who are righteous, kind, and powerful, and condemns this kind of behavior towards teammates. Secondary mission is now available. Immediately bow to apologize to your teammate and make her happy. Spin 3 times and shout, 'I'm a dog, woof woof.' Do you accept this mission? Reward for completing the mission? An S-rank thunder weapon. If you abandon the mission, the host will be disqualified from using the system." Li He drools at the mention of the reward, and, with a strange expression, wonders about being disqualified from using the system. He becomes terrified and questions what the system is doing, as he wasn't even that rude to his teammates. He thinks this mission is very humiliating. The Demon King and Tiantian watch the young man battling within his mind, deciding whether or not to accept the mission. Liu orders Li He to apologize quickly, or he'll beat him up, and Gao agrees, pointing out that Li He has been annoying for a long time, while Tiantian asks them to let it go. Struggling internally, Li He thinks it's better to let it go, reasoning that a real man should redeem himself, and he definitely can't lose the system. Suddenly, he kneels down, surprising Tiantian and Laya, and starts kissing the ground, standing up repeatedly to beg for forgiveness. Gao and Lu watch the scene, and Lu comments that he didn't even need to start beating him, while Gao asks why the rookie suddenly changed his mind. Li He starts spinning around, imitating a dog, and Laya wonders if the guy has some kind of intellectual disability, while Tiantian says it's fine and forgives him. The system appears, saying, "Well, the reward has been distributed. S-rank weapon, thunder bracelets." Li, extremely embarrassed, crouches down, covering his face, thinking that it was very humiliating, and his desire is to hide forever. Laya, smiling, comments that the boy is very strange and they should leave him alone. Tiantian responds that it's okay, as she no longer recognizes him as a teammate, and the two laugh. Meanwhile, the Demon King just watches everything closely. Meanwhile, in the SS dungeon, Mirror of Two Lives, future Li He sees the mirror from afar and remembers that this is a dungeon that contains artifact fragments, which are designed to defeat demons, and as long as he obtains the fragments before anyone else, he will be able to kill the Demon King, protecting that space-time. He approaches the mirror and concludes that for years, no one has managed to get past that dungeon, not because of the demon guarding it, but because of the dungeon's strange rules. When looking at himself in the mirror, he notes that any human who enters will receive a copy of their current self, and the only way to win is by killing the copy, but so far, no one has managed to defeat themselves. However, there is a flaw in this rule, which is that it can only duplicate one's present self, but he is not from this timeline, he is from the future. Suddenly, the copy emerges from the mirror and advances toward him, and as he dodges, he thinks, "Only my future self can kill my present self." They start fighting, exchanging powers, and future Li He believes that not only does he know all his moves and habits from that day, but he also prepared weapons in advance, specifically designed to defeat short-range weapons like the thunder bracelets. Knowing his habits, the next move will be a dodge, just as he predicted. And suddenly, future Li He grabs the copy from behind and strikes it brutally, killing it with ease. The copy then shatters, and he thinks that a replica is just a replica. Indeed, he is the chosen one. managing to pass the dungeon that has been unbeatable for hundreds of years. The mirror starts to crack until it shatters completely, releasing fragments of the artifact. Lee reaches out to take it, thinking that even without the system, he remains the chosen one. He grabs the fragment and fuses it into his dagger, which begins to emit a bright glow, and he concludes that not only will he become a hero, but he will also have a weapon to defeat the Demon King, becoming the true light of humanity. Holding his dagger, which continues to glow, he suddenly sees someone arriving at the dungeon and remembers that, according to the timeline, it is now when the Demon King arrives. And indeed, he has just arrived, still with the appearance of Qing Feng, but with his sinisterly powerful aura. But as soon as he arrives, he senses something is wrong, and suddenly, Li He charges to attack him. The Demon King is surprised by the speed of the attack and notices that Li He's dagger has a fragment of the artifact. Li He remembers the prophecy and knows he cannot waste time. He must catch him by surprise. Confident, he proclaims himself the child of prophecy. Li He manages to land his blow on the Demon King's chest. The Demon King tries to hold the dagger to avoid being killed, while Li He celebrates that the heart was pierced by the artifact fragments. With the blow, the body of Qing Feng begins to disintegrate, leaving future Li He stunned. As he transforms, the protagonist tries to say something, and Li He is shocked to see that he had actually killed present Li He, and, without understanding anything, wonders how this happened. Looking at the body on the ground, he tries to make sense of what is happening and whether he killed himself. Suddenly, someone arrives, shouting why there are two Li He's there. It was Laya, running towards him and saying that the dungeon replicates a duel against oneself. Gao is surprised, concluding that the rookie had gone there for a secret duel. The team advances towards him, asking which of the two is the real one, and future Li He realizes he's in trouble. Tiantian looks at the arm of the dead Li He and comments that he still has the weapon he equipped earlier, and the clothes are the same as when he left. That is the real Li He. As for the Li He who is alive, he is holding a fragment of a divine artifact. She points out that the boss of that dungeon possesses those fragments. Future Li He realizes he's screwed. Liu advances with his power, saying that the one who is alive is the mirror's replica, and orders everyone to kill him. He attacks with his sword, but Li He defends himself, saying he is not the replica. Li He manages to deflect Liu's sword to the side, but out of nowhere, Gao appears, jumping and attacking with ice shards. Laya concludes that he cannot fight all of them. Laya also advances from behind with her enchanted whip, and he realizes that it will be impossible to win since the divine fragment's attacks have little effect on humans. Laya tries to strike him, but he defends again, still trying to understand what is happening. Leah looks at the body on the ground and asks why it appeared there, especially in the form of a Demon King. 12 hours earlier, at the abandoned hotel, Leah looked at the system screen and thought that last night's mission nearly killed him, and he needed to increase his strength. The system screen read, "Congratulations, the mission has been completed, and you have been rewarded with a random S-Class option. Do you accept the next mission immediately? Reward, promotion to S-Class." Soon, another screen appeared saying, "The reward for the previous mission has been granted. S-Class Transformation Potion." Li Hu looks at the potion and says that this transformation potion is of the highest level, and no one will be able to see through the disguise. It could save his life in critical moments. Another screen appears displaying, "Mission objective, proceed immediately to the SS class dungeon, Mirror of Two Lives, and kill the monster. Friendly reminder, in this dungeon, when humans enter, a copy of them is created. You must kill the copy and obtain the divine artifact fragment." While holding the option, another screen appears, warning, "The system recommends using the transformation potion, which has a water attribute. This way, when you enter the dungeon, it will replicate a water attribute, allowing you to kill the copy. This is the key to completing the dungeon. Please ensure not to tell anyone and proceed there quickly on your own." Upon arriving at the dungeon, Li He, already in the form of Qing Feng, looks at the dungeon and thinks that the system alerts must be wrong. And besides, the transformation potion doesn't seem to have the water attribute. He notices something in front of him, his future self, but he thinks this is a copy from the mirror. He thinks the system must not fully understand the dungeons and wonders why that copy has so many scars on its face. Something must be wrong. Since the copy possessed the fragment, he believes it must be the dungeon boss. When future Lihei attacked him, saying he had finally killed the Demon King, Lihei was left confused, wondering what Demon King that was. Watching the attack, he wonders if he really died just like that. Lying on the ground, he cannot comprehend it, as he had followed the system's instructions. Back in the present, future Lihei continues trying to understand what was happening, while Tiantian attacks him from behind. He wonders why everything is different from his past life, as in his past life, he never transformed into the Demon King, nor went to the dungeon alone. Feeling the pain from Tiantian's blow, he remembers that in the 3 days since time restarted, he had been extremely cautious not to disrupt the development of the original timeline, and had teleported directly to this dungeon without meeting anyone or doing anything along the way, so he couldn't have changed what was supposed to happen. Future Lihei falls face first to the ground, and the Demon King approaches as Leah tries to get up. His team celebrates his arrival and explains that the dungeon boss was very easy to defeat, but unfortunately, Lihei was killed by the replica. The Demon King lifts Lihei by the hair, and Lihei screams that it is the Demon King, begging them to kill him. The entire team starts laughing at his words. Tiantian comments that the replica has gone mad. One moment, it claims to be the real Lihei, and the next, it says it is not. And now it's calling the leader the Demon King. Tiantian removes the fragment from the dagger and says she obtained another fragment of the artifact, adding that the replica is not so powerful because its strength isn't much different from that of level 8. Lihei, the Demon King, still holding Lihei by the hair, agrees and emphasizes that he is nothing but a copy that shouldn't exist in this world, nothing more than a complete fool. Lihei, in shock, wonders what that means, and whether the Demon King knows his true identity. The Demon King approaches him and asks if he really thinks he's the chosen one, and if he believed he was the only one capable of going back in time. Lihei is stunned upon hearing this. The Demon King begins to explain to him that, going back in the timeline, the protagonist invites the young Lihei to join the team on a mission to recover an artifact fragment, pointing out that he had just obtained confidential information about the location of the fragment. He asks Tiantian to inform the others that they will depart soon, and that he will rest in his room. And upon entering his room, thinking about how busy he had been with missions and searching for artifacts, he is shocked to see, standing before him, his future self, who with a sinister look says, "Greetings, my version from this timeline." Back in the current timeline, Lihei is stunned upon hearing the story, but before he can say anything, the Demon King sends him flying with a powerful kick and tells the team to take care of the rest. Without wasting any time, Gao unleashes his power, piercing through Lihei's body, who falls to the ground, nearly dead. In his last breath, he thinks that he should have been the protagonist. Tiantian, smiling, hands the fragment to the protagonist and says that the mission was a breeze. Lu approaches and compliments her fireball move, saying it was really cool, and she, embarrassed, replies that she succeeded because of their leader. The Demon King, holding the fragment, says he will make sure to protect this part of the artifact. At the same time, he wonders how exactly it could be destroyed. With everyone gathered and the mission complete, the protagonist asks them all to head back home. Sometime later, in the Magic Tower, the Demon King, holding the artifact, speaks to his future self, saying that this is the best place to hide the fragment, a place where humans cannot access. The protagonist asks him to take care of both fragments and inquires how he can avoid the fatal wound in his future. The future Demon King takes the fragments and replies that in 2 months, winter will arrive and snowflakes will fall. He will be gravely wounded by a weapon embedded with an artifact fragment wielded by a hero named Wu Feng. and he will be left on the verge of death. He explains that he barely managed to survive and found time to return and confront the Elder, beating him to force him to reverse time. The protagonist is confused and asks if that means he will be safe for the next 2 months. But as for his future self, with that wound, it seems he won't survive for many days. His future self explains that this is the first time he's had a conversation with himself, and from this perspective, he just realized how rude and unpleasant he can be. He continues by saying that the protagonist hasn't been in the Magic Tower for 3 months and must have forgotten how much improvement it brings to the Demon King. A system screen appears saying, passive ability, blood block, trigger mechanism, unconditional activation, permanent effect. The future self explains that the Demon King has the blood block ability, and since he is also the Demon King, as long as he stays in the Magic Tower, he cannot die now. The protagonist responds sarcastically, saying that he has become the spirit trapped in the Magic Tower, just like Rapunzel locked in the castle. His future self replies that the protagonist is lucky to have the blood block in the Magic Tower. Otherwise, he would have beaten him to a pulp. That's all, folks. If you enjoy the video, subscribe and hit the bell. Thanks.